What we've been hearing a lot about lately is this idea that it's possible that the consumer may be slowing a bit as we get into the holiday season. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We will have a little bit of a shorter session here this week with the Fed minutes is kind of the highlight, but obviously we are in a little bit of a shorter week ahead of the holiday, so we will also have a little bit shorter of a session. So this week is really going to be focused around the Fed. Before we get into that, my name is Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue, and our goal every Thursday is to bring to you the market news, the data, the trends that we're watching, and hopefully weed out a bit of the noise along the way. So again, this week's focus is really around the Fed yet again, but more so maybe just a little bit of a glimpse into the actual meeting itself. So obviously, we've discussed a couple times since the press conference a few weeks back, some of the observations that we gleaned from the Fed Chair Powell's words in that press conference and how he was kind of addressing some of the questions. As a quick recap, what we had kind of shared is basically the change in tone from up until this point. It seemed they were going to hike rates until the data suggested otherwise. After the meeting, what I got out of it was that they were done hiking unless the data says otherwise. So anyways, on Tuesday, we had the Fed minutes come out, and this is really a good glimpse into how the rest of the Fed members were looking at things and some of the conversations from their meetings leading up to that decision. And I'll say in general, the minutes kind of supported that general theme. The minutes kind of suggested that inflation would need to really shift up again before the Fed to raise were to raise any further. So rather than saying, inflation needs to kind of continue at the pace it's at for the Fed to raise, the minutes kind of suggested that they would need to see inflation shift up again in order for the Fed to consider raising rates again. It also was pretty dang clear from some of the minutes that there is really no plans to slow down cut rates in the near future. So this was also mentioned a couple times in the press conference. But of course, as soon as the Fed stops raising rates, the next question comes: well, when are they going to cut? And the minutes would suggest that there are really no plans at this point. It's hardly even a conversation. Now, obviously, if something were to shift, that could come up sooner than later. But assuming things move smoothly, the minutes would suggest that there's no plans in the near future to consider cutting rates. So basically, what I would suggest that I kind of gathered from the minutes here is that it seems they're hoping that inflation is slowing. If so, they are also hopeful that they're done raising rates at this point, but there are certainly no plans to cut anytime soon. So not necessarily anything new from the press conference and our takeaway from that conversation, but nonetheless, maybe just a little bit of a supporting factor into how we're kind of addressing and looking at the Fed here moving forward. Again, if inflation does pick up, that is maybe the risk to that side of things, but certainly it looks like the Fed is figuring out a path to stop and then kind of keep rates higher for a while here ahead. On top of that, there were some other data points I do want to touch on here in the short week. We had initial jobless claims come out just yesterday on Wednesday with the holiday. It came out a little earlier. So initial jobless claims at 209,000. Nothing really to think too much on this number here, but nonetheless, it is important to watch, especially as the jobs numbers become more and more important for the economy as a whole. And then also yesterday on Wednesday, we had consumer sentiment numbers come out, higher than expected, so kind of a good sign. But within that same vein, also heard a lot of news that basically the consumer is concerned about higher inflation as well. So maybe a little bit of conflicting news there to some degree, but nonetheless, one thing I will share as well is that what we've been hearing a lot about lately is this idea that it's possible that the consumer may be slowing a bit as we get into the holiday season. So we will continue to get data as December rolls out. And certainly in our Thursday updates, I will be sure to kind of share any of that we see. But if we do start to see the consumer spending slow, especially during the holiday season, that certainly is a factor to look at how that impacts the broader economy and certainly the stocks, that make it up. So we will definitely continue to keep an eye on that. And if there's news to report, we will be sure to keep you updated every Thursday. Please do let us know if you have any questions. Again, we skipped the last 2 weeks, just given that we had an event last week. And then, of course, the holiday here today. But let us know if you have any questions. I'll be sure to address them in our question of the week coming up next week. But in the meantime, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy some amazing food with your friends and family. And if you have the whole weekend off, enjoy the longer weekend as well. We will see you next Thursday at 3. In the meantime, happy Thanksgiving.